Thank the grace of heaven and the virtue of masters and the predecessors that I had this opportunity to continue the presentation on the answers to the truth. Okay, so we'll pick up where we left off yesterday. But before I start, I'd just like to, welcome some really new guests or whatever. Sally, welcome back. Are you on summer vacation now?
Yes.
Oh, so school is done. Okay, great. So Sally's back again. And then we, not Lydia, right? No. Island. Okay, yeah. I remember you when you were like this big. That's why. So because I remember your mom. Welcome to our class, English class. Hope you can attend. We have every Sunday, right? Yeah, every Sunday here. So get the chance, free time. You're more than welcome to come. Listen. So anyway. Well, yeah, you guys are all out of school too, right? Okay. Evelyn's back, yeah, for some time.
I
Yeah.
just came back too.
Yeah, but you did. So it doesn't count. Okay, so anyway, yeah. The reason why I'm tired is because I just got back from Ohio, and yeah, I drove back yesterday. So no, Friday. So even though it's a short drive, it was still kind of tiring. So anyway, that's why I'm still tired. Okay. Okay, here we go. 53. Okay. So we're on number. Oh, you control it there. Fine. 53. Why is it so common that whenever a person reads Tao, it does themselves? Okay. Well, first of all, has anybody been reading this? Probably not, right?
I don't have a copy.
Yeah, right. We're supposed to get some copies soon, I guess, whenever we get a shipment. Is that correct? Yeah, the one we will get is not this particular yellow orange copy. Okay, this is the original, the first one, right? The first one we got, the first time we got it. This has both English and Chinese. Okay, the one we'll be getting now is a purplish color, something like that, and it's all English on it. It's basically they just took this book and just ripped it in half where the Chinese is and the English is, and then made it into a book. That's all, the English part. Okay, so we'll be getting that, but I guess that's to a certain extent or to a majority extent it is okay, because if you read the English translation, okay, and then you compare that to the actual Chinese, if you can read, you'll see there's some discrepancies every now and then. Okay, so therefore, when you read it English, just keep in mind that it's not the exact interpretation of the Chinese. Okay, so there may be certain areas that, and it's subtle. It's not very obvious. Certain areas that are not exactly. I'll call it correct, not exactly correct, because sometimes they say, oh, this would never happen or whatever. Well, not really. so anyway, okay, just keep that in mind, okay, in the future. This is actually a very good book in terms of getting you some ideas or explaining some questions that you would have, okay. So I do read this occasionally, okay, every now and then. Even if you read it once, you go back and read it again, and sometimes you get a different interpretation of it. Okay, so, just to bring it, before I even start, I just want to bring up some news about the Ohio situation. Ohio has agreed on a purchase of a building for a temple, because Ohio did not have a building for a temple per se. They had a house that they were using it as a public temple, okay, Gong Gong Fu Tang, okay, and just within the past month, they found the building on sale. It's pretty, it's in semi-bad shape, but it was very cheap. Okay, so that's why we purchased it. Well, we didn't purchase it. The Ohio people decided to purchase it. And right now, the closing of the purchase will not occur until, I think, June 7th. Okay, and at that point, we will own the building, but it still requires a fair amount of repair. Okay, fortunately, the owner has done some work himself or herself before selling it to us, and so when we get it, it'll be a pretty clean building in the sense that everything else inside interior has been torn out pretty much and removed. So Transmitter Rome is hoping to completely renovate the building. The building itself is about twice as big as here. Okay, it's the temple area. This is about 5,000 square feet. Is that correct? About 5,000. Okay, 5,000 square feet. But that includes the the bedrooms and all these offices here, etc. Their building their main building. The building actually is like three parts. We'll call it Building 1, Building 2, and Building 3. Building 2 is where the temple will be. Building 2 itself has about like over 7,000 square feet, so it's much bigger than this. And in that area, there will be no like living quarters, like the offices or the kitchen that we have, like here. Okay, and since it's a single floor, so there's no stairway or elevator place, and basically. It'll be used only for classrooms, bathrooms, and temple. Okay, and of course there's like a utility room that's needed because we have electrical panels, etc. Okay, so that itself is over 7,000 square feet, and so we will have plenty of classrooms. And then the dining area is a separate area. It's called Building 3, and that itself is like about 3,000 something square feet. Okay, that will include kitchen, dining area, and bathrooms, and a small garage. Okay. So that's going to be pretty big, and again, it's all single floor. The ceiling on that building is about like 15 feet high, so it's very high, tall ceiling. And then Building 1 is where they plan. It's a two-story building and has about 2,000 square feet combined, 1,100 and 1,100, and they will use that for residential quarters, so to speak. So there'll be bedrooms on the second floor, bedroom on the first floor, small kitchenette, and a small living area. So, and we hope to use it as a mixed-use building. So therefore, you can have somebody. Hopefully, loan dancer will be there all the time. Well, most of the time. Okay, and other people who go visit can stay there. They don't have to stay at hotels and all that. Okay, so the total cost for all the conversion and all that stuff could take like almost $1 million, less than $1 million, So, right now the funds aren't there yet, but the idea is hopefully we eventually will get there, or that's what Ohio hopes anyway. So think about that, in the sense that if you have time or whatever, that could go and help out, when they start the construction, or minor cleaning, whatever, you just do that. But the actual construction, all that stuff, after going through all the legal bureaucracy with the city and all that stuff, probably won't take place until September. So for those of you in school, you're out of the picture pretty much. But for those who are not in school, you have, if you want, you can go visit there. Okay, so that's the situation in Ohio. In Iowa, in another situation, Iowa will probably be currently purchasing a piece of land for the temple this summer. I don't know when yet, but the plan is to do that. So there will probably be another temple eventually in Iowa. Okay, so again, this is all still in the works. So anytime in the future, you plan to visit those places, it's a good, it'll be pretty good to do, because both those temples will certainly be bigger than currently over here, and probably a little bit more well laid out in terms of functionality. Okay, so I guess we can start our class. Okay, so last time I left off at question 52. We use the left hand, right hand. So right now we're going to start with 53. Okay, now because I had anticipated that we would have plenty of these books, but we don't. But basically, I'll have somebody read the answer to the question that's posed. Okay, so the question is, why is it so common that whenever a person receives 10 thou, the thou at first, he dedicates himself or herself at the beginning, but eventually becomes lax? Okay, now I don't know if any of you had that experience before. Have any of you had that experience before? Yeah. Probably, you weren't. You probably were thinking that, I had no dedication in the beginning, so it wasn't like, so no big deal, right? But anyway, but it is true, because after all, the idea of us having people receive the Tao, okay, it's as Buddha tells us that when we propagate the Tao, we try to propagate. Well, we are propagating to what we call Yuan Fu Zi. Okay, everybody knows what that means. Yuan Fu Zi. Okay, Yuan means original. Fu Zi means Saint Buddha. Okay, I guess that's the original Buddha. So, because after all, we all came from heaven, right? The absolute heaven. We come into this world, we mingle, and then hopefully we return. Okay, so the idea of presenting, propagating the style to Yuan Fu Zi is to basically say that you are propagating the Tao to those who have already some foundation in this Tao. Because when a holy teacher talks about Yuan Fu Zi, he talks about the fact that, when a Yuan Fu Zi, a person who actually hears about the Tao, they become very interested in the Tao. Okay, only because they have a good foundation in terms of past lives of cultivation. Okay, and so they themselves are at a time where it's like it's ripe for them to be able to hear about the truth. Okay, because you will find those that when you do propagate the Tao, you find people that some are not interested, some may or may not be interested, and some may be interested at first, but then maybe not later. Okay, so those just means the fact that even though most probably Tao people would say, Tao transmitters would say, oh, okay, yeah, they're still Yuan Fu Zi, but they're not. Their time has not come yet. Okay, because some of us have experienced the fact that we always had people nagging at us to try to receive the Tao and all that stuff. And at first we sort of like reject, and then eventually one day we agreed to it. Okay, so in that sense, your timing has arrived. Your time has come, so to speak. Okay, so that's why you all of a sudden become a little bit interested and eager. Okay, so I myself experienced that. So I guess every one of us is like that. But for those that are truly, people who are very ripe for the propagation, they become very interested at the beginning and still stay interested throughout. Okay, but however, there are always some cases that it says that whenever a person receives the Tao, one day pays themselves first, but then sort of becomes lax a little bit afterwards. Okay, so what is the reason for that? Okay, so would anybody like to read this answer? Okay, Cindy, one minute, just raise their hand. Okay. Huh?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't raise your hand for that. Okay. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Virginia.
I was gonna say something.
Oh, okay. What were you gonna say?
Well, what I learned recently, like why people back off, is I think people not knowing the truth, the true teachings that the Buddhas are telling us.
Okay. Yeah.
That knowledge is not concrete.
Yeah.
Inside,
Right.
That's why.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, after all, we do all hear the truth, the teaching of the truth all the time. The question is whether we truly understand it. Whether we truly understand it. If we truly can understand it, then we'll understand the meaning behind it. Then, of course, we'll do it. But if we think we understand, only think we understand, or don't understand, then we don't. We'll still follow what they tell us to do, but your heart is not really within it. So therefore, you will be, in a way, dedicated at first, but then later on, begin to slack off. But anyway, go ahead, Virginia.
An ancient sage said once, when getting to learn Tao is made easy, practicing Tao becomes difficult. When practicing Tao is easy, attaining Tao becomes difficult. This is telling us that most people cannot start and finish as oneness. The methods ancient saints used to teach people were to have the awakened enlightened. the non-awakened.
Yeah,
And
awaken to
have the awakened, enlightened, the
The
non-awakened.
non-awakened.
Yeah, and to have the non-awakened model after the awakened. Now, Tiandao is made available to everyone. Thus, it is the leader who bears the responsibility of awakening the others and the success of the orders.
altars, right? The temple.
A bell will not sound if it is not rung, and one will not awake to Tao if no one awakens him. An ancient saint said, "It is man who spread Tiandao. Tiandao cannot spread itself among men."
Thank you. That's the first paragraph. Right? Thank you. So, yeah. So, do we kind of understand that? Well, first of all, it says the fact that when getting if that was so easy, then one does not necessarily understand the preciousness of it, right? Its value. So therefore, in a certain sense, what sometimes is difficult to grasp is sometimes we sort of like we take it more seriously because first of all we put in a lot of effort, so we don't want to see that effort go to waste. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Another way is the fact that the truth is not something that's very simple, because after all, if it was so simple, why bother with the way we're doing things? You just advertise it and everybody will get it. Okay, so that's why it says that when the Tao is made easy, practicing becomes difficult, because practicing is the follow-up to receiving it, right? And so therefore, when the practice is easy, then the follow-up to practice is eventual attainment. That becomes difficult. So that's why it is true that on the one hand people don't understand it at the beginning. So here it says that the reason why people don't understand is why, because the leaders have to take responsibility to make it easier, and to a certain extent that's true. It is the awakened, those who are already awakened, to awake the non-awakened. Okay, so in that sense, what it just means is the fact that it is those who understand to make it, to allow those who don't understand to be able to understand. Okay, and that's not easy always, because after all, not all those who are necessarily awakened are like natural teachers. Okay, because a person may be you're non-awakened at the beginning, then you become awakened. But just because you're awakened does not necessarily mean you know how to awake others. Okay, so that's why, just as for example, many of us today we have all these classes in the temple right now, where you go Xing Ming Ban Ming De Xing Ming blah 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 Zisan, and all the way up, make your way up. Hopefully, the idea of the classes or the approach of these classes is try to give everybody a chance to be able to know the material, okay, hopefully understand the material, and then to present the classes on those material. Okay, but it is also true that not everyone is made out to be a teacher or a lecturer. Some people are very shy about talking in front of everybody. Some people find that their ability to speak well is not that good, because after all, some people like to cook in the kitchen, for example, So and we don't have classes for that. We don't have we don't have cook lecturers. Let's put it that way. Okay, so it is true that we all have our own abilities, and that's based upon our own karma. But at the same time, Buddha, holy teacher, had always told us that we should at least try to learn something. We won't be able to necessarily be as skilled. That's true on the onset or at the start. But eventually, if you can at least make an effort to learn it, you will be able to achieve some form of success, I guess I'll call it that. Okay, so you'll at least get some, more, I guess, a more comfortable feeling in that being in that position, whether it's lecturing or whatever. Okay, even though one may not have done before, or one is very shy about it. Okay, so in that sense, attending those classes is a good thing. Even if you do not become successful as a lecturer, you do at least get presented with a lot of material, the material of those classes. Okay, and also you get to, I guess you could say, you get a feel for understanding what it takes to cultivate. Because all these things, all these classes or material they tell you about, is to tell you about change, transforming yourself to be a better person, etc. Okay, so it's also a way to help you cultivate. Even if you don't take the classes for the purpose of becoming a lecturer or whatever, you should at least try to take the classes just to learn cultivation. Okay, because after all, those in the materials in the classes does try to help you better understand the truth, and so therefore better cultivate. Okay, so any questions so far? Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, here it says a bell. It says at the last part, a bell will not sound if it's not rung, and one will not wake to death if no one wakes him. So yeah, if you have very strong self-confidence and determination, then okay, in that case, yeah, you may be able to teach yourself. Okay, that's possible, or to try to understand this stuff. But after all, whatever you're trying to teach yourself with or understand is with material that the Buddhists had already given to us. Like what we call the sutras, the Xingwen, the sutras and all that stuff. So nevertheless, somebody already had given you the information, so to speak. It is now up to you to understand it. And if you do have self-determination and self-confidence, a lot of it, then you could try to learn it on your own. But it's not as easy as learning it like in a group. That's why we have classes, for example. Just like the classes to become a lecturer and all that. That's why it's always good to try to attend the class. Even though if you don't get much out of it, you may get one or two things. And so therefore, that can help you also in your cultivation. Okay, so any other questions? Okay. Again, I'm sorry. The last part says, it is men who spread Tian Dao. Tian Dao cannot spread itself among men. So what is that trying to tell us? That what?
Don't rely on people too.
Yeah, it relies on people because after all, there's a saying, what? Ken Bu Ying. Heaven does not speak, the walls do not talk. Right? The earth, yeah.
Does not speak.
Yeah, does not speak, yeah. It's like saying, if you're an archaeologist, right? You go dig up, you go to like the Egypt pyramids, and you ask the pyramids, oh man, if you could tell me about the history, the history the life that you lived, that would be great. But the walls are not going to say anything, right? So in the same way, yeah, it takes those, first of all, who understand to be able to teach, and it takes us as humans, because we're the only ones who speak. Well, animals speak among themselves, but we speak among ourselves, humankind. Okay, so anyone else want to try it? Next paragraph. No takers? Come on. Thank you, Rashid. Second paragraph, 53. Yeah.
Why is it so common that whenever a person receives Tian Dao, he dedicates himself at the beginning but eventually becomes lax? An ancient sage said once, even the ancient Buddhas and immortals still needed guidance from their masters. During our time, most are ordinaries and need more help. That is why all leaders in Tian Dao must set examples for the others so they can be touched. Usually, the students have to come to learn from the master, not the master going to the student. However, not even 1 in 10,000 can attain Dao without a teacher. This is why the initiators and guarantors of Tian Dao are urged to dedicate themselves to teach and encourage those whom they brought into receiving Tian Dao. It is especially important to ask all to obey the following 16 set rules: establish oneself, dedicate to one's mission, rid of hobbies, commit no adultery, carry out duties, obey Tian Ning, establish firm will, rid of motley thoughts, practice Kung Fu, be thrifty, offer incense to God, be a vegetarian, cultivate virtues, rid all mistakes, repent, and search for the truth.
Thank you, Rashid. So here, basically, it's now talking a little bit more about, getting into a little bit more detail here. Okay, so now, the very beginning, it says back that, yeah, even Buddhism, ancient Buddhism and immortals still need guidance from their masters. Yes, because even if you look at the Buddha, if you look at the story of the Buddha, okay, he himself, before he became, it is true that he sort of like in a way enlightened himself because he sat under that Bodhi tree and he saw the falling star and he goes, oh, you realize something? But of course we say, oh, okay, but he still needed that pointing out by the, that the other Buddha, Lantern, okay, Dipankara, okay. So, but beyond that pointing out, because that's sort of like the final phase, the final step, okay. But to get to that stage, he sort of like figured a lot out himself, So he was pretty good, But you also have to understand the fact that the Buddha also went through 6 years of experience prior to that, prior to sitting down at the tree, right? He went through 6 years of what? Hard cultivation through like 4 or 5 gurus, 6 gurus, whatever. So he learned, I don't know, he learned a lot of things. Sleeping on bed and nails, blah blah blah, fasting, etc. Yeah. So he learned a lot of discipline. So in that sense, that part of his life was try to refine. I'll call it refine his foundation. Okay, because he already had. He himself had said, well, how many reincarnations did he have? Many. Even the reincarnated as animals or whatever, right? Okay, and he said, so all those reincarnations in a way was part of his cultivation of the past. But so he has a good foundation in this particular life, and you can tell by the fact that he had a good foundation, and he was a person of cultivation. It was because he was born in a prince, let's face it, right? And so therefore he had a good lot of what we call fu bao, or a lot of karmic rewards, fortunes, you want to call it, whatever. Okay, so but because of his also past cultivation and his foundation, he was willing to give all those up in search of truth. Okay, because it is the truth that he was really seeking for all those past lives. Okay, and then but even though he was able to give it up, he still needed some refinement of his foundation. Okay, because after all, in this life, as he himself says, he was very treated very delicately in the palace. Okay, so he needed some refinement to, I guess you could say, clean off all the gathered attachments or the worldly influences. Okay, so and that refinement is to really clear that all. So therefore, that what lay bare was now his real foundation, so to speak. And so therefore, with that, he was able to continue his cultivation and come to a realization that, this is what it is. But he still needed a missing, that pointing out, which again, the later Buddha did. Okay, so even the Buddha himself. So if you look at the story of the Buddha, you can get an idea of it's not easy to become a Buddha. Okay, he went. He didn't say how many past lifetimes, right? No, he just said many, right? Was what he said. Okay, so anyway, so here it says, in our time now, it's not the Buddhist time. In our time, the Tao is propagated universally, meaning the fact that it's more widely spread. Even though we don't advertise or anything, because the way we propagate it out is we don't rely on the fact that, okay, even though you're a total stranger, we'll still do it. We still do that in a certain sense because we rely more on karmic affinity, meaning the fact that, you one day, you have your many friends and all that stuff, but sometimes you may be more closer to one friend or whatever, or some person, and so that's karma after all, right? And so therefore it is through that the person becomes interested in it, and therefore when you discuss about, the Tao and all that, they also are more willing to accept what you say and also be willing to learn more about what you're talking about. So in that sense, we do rely more on karmic affinity. Okay, so, now, here is also saying the fact that because it is that case, then the leaders of Tendao must also set examples for all the others. So, in a certain sense, you also have a responsibility, and that is a responsibility of the fact that not to blindly follow a leader. Not to blindly follow a leader. That's very important. At the beginning, it is true that you will follow because you don't know anything, so you're more willing to just follow. Okay, but as Buddha himself or Holy Teacher himself also said that when we follow, we must also understand what we're following or what we're doing in terms of following. Okay, so Holy Teacher once said that. Oh, okay, even if Buddha tells you, oh, go jump off, go jump off a cliff, you can do that. No, because after all, what you must understand is the fact, or try to understand the fact that does this obedience or following stay in accord with the principles of the Tao. That's very important. What you hear or what you're told to do, does that follow the accord or stay in line with what the principles of the Tao is about? Okay. Now, it is true that sometimes they say, oh, there's certain situations that it is hard to determine, and so therefore, yeah, it's not to say that you shouldn't do it, but you could still do it. Okay. But you should always be consciously aware of how you're doing it. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so a good example would be like, okay, the principle of the Tao sets out certain the 15 rules and regulations, right? Su Tiao Fu Gui, right? We all know though, right? But if you look at each one of them, right? Each one of them, it is true that they all say, oh, based on certain conditions, yeah, you just follow it. It makes sense to follow it. But sometimes they contradict each other sometimes when you read it, okay, and when you get an understanding. So you go, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense, right? But in truth, it's the fact that everything actually follows. Everything is okay. It's just that sometimes you must bend the rules in a sense. Sometimes, okay. That's why Lecturer Liu of the Buddha Nature class, he says what? Sometimes you do use what's called 方便法, convenience method. Okay, that which is convenient or expedient, they say. In Buddhism, they like to talk about expediency a lot, especially when you read the Diamond Sutra. Okay, so expediency just means that something that will allow the progress to continue, something to flow and not interrupt it, or cause it to stop, so to speak. So in that sense, yeah, you do still do things, but you have to be able to also be aware of how you're doing it, and that's very important because sometimes you can do it, but then you must sometimes have to explain it in a way that allows the person to say, oh yeah, in a specific situation you do it this way, etc. Okay, or you have to do it this way. All right. So that's the hard part. Okay. And then the last part here that this paragraph talks about, and that sort of like saying, okay, it is especially important to ask all to obey the following 16 set of rules. Okay, all mean the leaders as well as the followers. Okay, and by the way, and the leaders are supposed to set an example. So part of the responsibility of the followers, sometimes to correct the leaders, and that's hard to correct the leaders because because after all, the leaders and the followers are all human. So they will make the same mistakes whether you're a leader or a follower. Okay, it's just that it is hoped that the leaders understand more about the principle of the Tao, so therefore they make less quote-unquote mistakes. But we're all human, so sometimes that doesn't happen. So that's why it's important, first of all, for the leaders to acknowledge the fact that they can make mistakes. Number two is that they should also be willing to listen to the followers. Okay, and the followers, of course, are to listen to the leaders, of course, because supposedly they have more understanding or knowledge, but also to try to understand or make sure that what is being taught or told or to do also stays in accord with the principles of the Tao. Okay, so and if you sometimes have to correct, in theory, what I've said is very easy. The question is sometimes the hard part is the implementation, how to do it. Because how do you correct the leader? If the leader is very stubborn or something like that, want to do certain things different way, how do you correct him or her? And so far, my own answer to the question is the fact that you can suggest it, but you have to suggest it in a very mild manner. Okay, you don't confront or argue with. And failing that, the next best thing is just to set yourself as a good example. So that's why when CERN, there's a story goes that CERN Dao Kin in Taiwan, because in Taiwan at that time when the grand predecessor, Lao Chen, was still alive, Okay, he had many, children under him, and then of course under them, the predecessors, and then under them they had many followers. And some followers felt that their particular predecessor was not doing things so well, okay, or correct even. And so they would, because there's a higher level up, that you can go to, they went to the Lao Chen and the grandparents. And so I started complaining about the leaders, their leaders and all that stuff. And the grandparents, listened patiently to what they said. And after they were done, he would say, oh, then, he would respond by saying, well, how are you, the person who was, that he's meeting, And of course, the person at that time who was saying all these complaints didn't quite understand what grandparents were saying. Okay, he thought, oh, he was just asking how I was. What the grandparents was trying to say was this: well, compared to all your complaints or whatever, compared to the person that you're complaining about, whatever, how are you compared to them? Meaning the fact that how have you established yourself as the good or right, right person, whatever, who can manifest these virtues that you're saying is lacking in the leader, in their particular leader. So in other words, if the leaders cannot change, okay, or may not at the moment change, you yourself need to set up yourself as a good example, so that when the leader sees you as such a person, it may influence them to change. Okay, so that's why some people say, there's a Chinese 以身作则. You do things yourself. Okay, you yourself must set up yourself as an example. Okay, so but so as a follower, it's important for you to also raise questions sometimes. If the leader itself, him or herself, is not, you think, or maybe you don't understand the principle, whatever, or they may have necessarily the right view of how things would do. Present it. But the way you present it is very important. The way you present it. Okay. Okay. Now talk about those 16 rules. Okay. Establish oneself. Okay, that's what we just talked about for a moment ago. Okay. Set yourself as a good example. Dedicate to one's mission. Okay, be willing to continue on the path that you're taking in terms of cultivation. Rid of hobbies. Well, what it means is that rid of any I would say attachments, but you could also say addictions. Okay, what's an addiction? Okay, addiction is something that you habitually do. That's an addiction, right? You through habit or whatever, you do it always. Okay, even though now, the hard part of getting rid of an addiction is the fact that first of all, you may not know that you have an addiction, that you're constantly being influenced by something. Okay. Number two is the fact that sometimes you don't know how to get rid of it. Okay, that's possible. That's why it stays with you. And number three is the fact that that's the hard part, is that you don't want to get rid of it. Okay, and that's makes it very difficult to get rid of an addiction. Okay, an addiction could be anything. You could, it's not the same. It's the same word as when we commonly use as saying, oh, you have a drug, you have a drug addiction or something like that. Okay, but it could be actually anything. It could be anything. It could be I don't know, as simple as let's see.
Habits.
Yeah, well, it's a habit. It's a habit that you can't get rid of. That's or you have not get rid of. Okay, it could be anything as like today in today's world, it's all what? Playing video games, right? I mean, that is so easy to do because today's technology has allowed us to have entertainment come down to the personal level, so to speak, right? So if you're so addicted, because I know some people who are addicted in the sense that they work Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday they're at their computer, and they're playing these like what they call these multi-massive multiplayer MMP, ROP or whatever. Everybody gets involved. It used to be. It's similar to like when I was in college, we had this thing called Dungeons and Dragons. Ever heard of it? You ever heard of it? Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, for those who are younger, they may not. But Dungeons and Dragons, today they still have it, I think, right? And Dungeons and Dragons is sort of like a board game or a game that everybody gets together, and then you have Grandmaster or Dungeon Master, and you have players, and it's like people playing, And
That's old.
but today,
Role playing.
yeah, it's role playing, right? It's role playing. But today you have that now in video, and it's high tech, and everybody, it's more, more attractive actually, these massive games. Because the reason why it's so fun is because you're playing with others, your friends and all that stuff. And you think it's a cooperative, game and all that, and but believe it or not, you can get addicted to it. Seriously, seriously. So be careful about that.
From it.
Yeah, no, because
24 hours
yeah,
straight.
yeah, and you could like stay up all night playing it, because I know that when I was in college, man, we did that with the board games. We stayed up all
Nothing
night.
better to do.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, you're sort of like neglecting a lot of things, your own responsibilities. So in that sense, that is why it is an addiction. Even though we don't see it like same like a drug addiction and all that, because believe it or not, if you try and get rid of it, there'll be withdrawal symptoms too. It's just like there'll be some withdrawal. So but the point is, whether it's that or watching videos, it doesn't have to be a game. Watching videos, watching movies, I don't know.
Using your cell.
Oh, using your cell phone, yeah. Oh, yeah. How people today, everybody's texting all the time.
Wow.
You're always in communication with everybody. The social media stuff. Yeah, social media. Yeah, so that can be an addiction too. Okay, so the point is this. Yeah, so when we're trying to get rid of these hobbies or addictions, yeah, it could be anything. Okay, anything.
It
Okay.
can also be our fixation to certain ideas, our own
That's true too. That's true.
understanding,
That's true. That's true.
our perception of things.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
5 king views.
Yeah, right. So that's why Buddha talked about the fact that hey, it's very important that you have the first precept very
Well, first,
very that precept is not the 15 precept, but like the proper view. There's 8 of them. Eightfold paths, right? And the first one is what? Proper view. That's the very first one.
proper understanding.
Yeah, proper view and understanding, right? So therefore, you need to have the, if you have the wrong view, then the rest of it you'll go wrong, so to speak. You'll go off the path. So that's why the first one's the most important.
How do you get the proper view?
Yeah. See, so again, that's through a lot of things.
Well,
Okay.
there are 2 approaches. One's inner, one's outer.
Mhm.
Outer, we learn, right? We
Right.
try to learn the correct thing, obviously. We don't learn the wrong things, so we have to make sure that we learn things from the proper text, sutras, right? Sutras, or proper masters, right? So we don't go off to masters that says, hey, I'll teach you kung fu, or I'll teach you qigong, and I'll teach you how to, fly in the air, or whatever. I don't know, go through walls. Whoa, that's scary, right? That's wrong, right? So, 术流动静, right? Those 4 practices. 术, I teach you.
Alchemy.
Yeah. It's not alchemy. It just means you can predict the future, or you can, win the lottery, whatever.
Transcendental power.
Yeah. Anyway, right? Liu means like qigong, right? Qigong, yoga, whatever. Reiki. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's wrong, right? So what's proper? There's the external side, right? So a lot of us, it's all doing the external side. I would say 99% of us. What's the inner? Hey, what's the inner part?
Buddha nature.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So that's why Buddha's Holy Teacher recommend that we have to, besides the external side, approach, we have to do the inner approach, which is ultimately it's your Buddha nature. The rest is it's all form.
Yeah. So basically that Buddha nature is very much.
It's called Ben.
If you look at the first precept, that is what first precept is what to what revere what first
Revere the Buddhas
precept
and
of
saints.
15, and
尊敬先父.
and the fact that you are a what Buddha saint means that so the idea is that you have to do inner and outer. Okay, next one, commit no adultery. Okay, no fooling around, no lust, whatever. Carrying out our duties, okay, whatever your responsibilities are. Obey Tianmin. Well, obey Tianmin, See, here you have to be careful. When we say obey Tianmin, what are we really saying? Careful. Think about it for a second.
So to follow our to act on our conscience.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? The more obvious is to follow, whoever has Tianming, right? Okay. But it's important to differentiate following the Tianming versus following the person. That's very important. Just because a person has Tianming, because let's face it, one of the problems, I think it's a problem, one of the problems we have as followers is when we have problems or whatever, we say, oh, let's ask the transmitter. Let's just let the transmitters decide. Let the transmitter
Ask holy teacher.
or ask holy teacher. And even holy teacher got fed up with us a little bit. He constantly said, hey, you have your own Buddha nature. Why don't you use your wisdom? Why
that's wisdom.
Why are you
That's
always
part.
asking Buddha these problems? Why can't you figure it out yourself? Okay, so because after all, if you don't do that, you never grow up, so to speak. You never learn. So that's why you have to do that. Okay? So the same thing applies. When one of the problems we like to do is, or one of the things we like to say, we can't agree on this. Let's go ask it. Let's ask the transmitter. He'll make that. It seems like in a way we're sort of like putting the responsibility on somebody else. That's number one. And number two, we're assuming that the other person who's making the decision knows more.
Well,
and that's not true.
Hopefully.
You hope that is the case, but not always the
That's not the
case.
case.
The transmitter may know less about what you're talking about.
That's even worse.
And and the decision he or she makes maybe what?
Even worse.
Even worse.
Seriously? That's even worse.
No, because we're all human. That's the problem.
Well, you're not at that level.
And we're not at that level. Yes.
So what is Tianming related to?
Well, the Tianming related to is the fact that it is the fact that we all have Tianming. And really it's talking about the fact that your own wisdom. Come on, everybody. So because we tend to see the physical form of Tianming versus the understanding of Tianming. The physical form of Tianming is that transmitter. Okay, because that's why he or she is a transmitter. But it's just a title. Come on.
It's Tianming in Chinese.
It means
words.
heaven's mandate.
It means heaven's mandate. I'm sorry. Tianming means heaven's mandate. Because
You can say it's heaven's
authority.
authority. Yeah, right. Because we all because if you think about we all because we are
We
what
all
all
have
Buddhas,
authority.
right? Buddha nature, right? We all have Buddha nature. So that automatically means what? You have Tianming. You have some form of Tianming. Okay. Some form of Tianming. Okay. Not the Tianming necessarily to say, okay, specifically that says you can represent the teacher to point out the portal. You don't have that specific Tianming in that sense. Okay. And that only applies when you're among when you're in a situation where you have to do pointing out. Okay. Because that's why not everybody can just say, oh, I know the procedure. Why can't I do it? Do
That's
this.
a specific.
Because it's very specific. Okay. So in that sense, Tianming has a very broad meaning
Right.
and it's very specific areas.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. But here to understand the obey Tianming is to say the broad, the overall view,
Right,
what
right.
heaven's mandate is. Heaven's mandate is the fact that you have what? The ability to be alive and to be able to manifest your Buddha nature.
Yeah. Another way of understanding the broad, what we call heaven's mandate, is that anything, anyone, it could be anything, anyone that has a true nature. So we know the table doesn't have true nature.
Well, it doesn't have
So
the
therefore
Buddha
it doesn't have Tianming. The mountain doesn't have one. Yeah, there could be spirits that reside in the mountains. Yeah. So people confuse the two, say, oh, therefore the mountain is a god. You get it? Or like a plant. They say tree, according to Buddhist tradition or Hindu tradition. They say a lot of old trees, ancient trees, especially like 1,000-year-old trees or so. They have spirits, that spirits live in there. Yeah, seriously. So they worship the tree. They kind of misinterpret, right?
Yeah,
they don't realize
you
that.
confuse the tree with the spirit.
Right. The tree itself
It's
has
just
no
a tree.
spirit
It's just a tree.
because it has no xing. No xing. Get it? Xing.
Yeah.
The nature. We call it nature. True nature. True nature. Get it? But spirits could, I would say possess, could reside in there. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So then they're confused. They say, oh, this tree is a I don't know, deity or something like that. Get it? See, so some people, so that's called proper view. That's not called proper view. Get it? Or proper understanding.
So anyway, to continue on. Okay. rid of motley thoughts. Oh no, I'm sorry. Obey Timmy and then establish firm will. Make sure that you have a good foundation to do what you want to do in terms of cultivation. Rid of motley thoughts. Rid of motley thoughts is more like 杂念. Okay, we call it 杂念 means 杂念 means miscellaneous, distracting thoughts. Okay, that's why you know when we talk about cultivating, we talk about also. Here it says practice kung fu. Okay, now it's not the same kung fu like martial art like Johnny teaches that type of kung fu. Okay, but it's inner kung fu, and that is what to put it in terms of Chinese we say 真人静坐, right? The true person, the true blue nature, what? In quietude or in stillness. Okay, so that means that you are no longer influenced by these external thoughts or situations, influences. Okay, you're not influenced by that. Okay, yeah, or thought. It could be thoughts. Okay, be thrifty. Okay, that's being thrifty is one of the 15 precepts anyway, right? Yeah. Okay. Offer incense to God. Okay, that means that what? Some discipline in terms of having reverence for what God, the saints and Buddha. Be a vegetarian. Now that's a little bit more. That's a specific thing.
It's hard.
It's more harder. Okay. But by the way, when you do the classes on being vegetarian is not just the consumption.
Yeah.
Okay, it's more than that. Okay.
It's thoughts and words.
Okay. Cultivate virtues. Again, we as cultivators must try to always manifest our own virtues. And also, the more we can cultivate virtues, the more you can establish yourself. We say establish yourself. And it is only then can you influence others to establish themselves.
Become a role model.
Okay, right. Rid all mistakes. Okay. Rid all mistakes just means the fact that you're gonna make mistakes. It just means that really what it's trying to say is don't try to make the same mistake again. That's all it's trying to say. You will make mistakes on the first time, but don't try to make it again. And then repent, be willing to try to make an effort to change. And then search for the truth, of course, to learn. Okay, so the last part here I'll read is that an elder said, "There's no peerage." That means there's no peerage means
I don't want to say status, but
no.
position.
It is a little bit like status, but there's no understanding among people. If one has no merits, even though we are helping others outwardly to accumulate merits, in reality, we are. I'm reading this. I'm not saying this. Okay. Even though we are helping others outwardly to accumulate merits, in reality, we are helping ourselves to attain Tao. This is why we must start and follow through all the way in practicing Tao until we finish. Okay. Basically, what it's just saying is that, when you start out something, it is important that you really finish it in order to accomplish it. Okay, because if you haven't finished it, okay, then that means you really haven't achieved anything in that sense.
Well, the simple broad category of peerage is, are we, because you talk about cultivation.
Yeah, right.
Are we 凡人或者前贤或者贤人 right? That 贤人 means worthy.
Virtuous.
Virtue, worthy, right?
Worthy.
Or are we ordinary folks? Or unenlightened beings, you can say. Right? Okay? So those are the two broad categories, you can say that. Then obviously within each, there are different levels, obviously. But the key is, when we say peerage, they're talking about, are we worthy? Are we considered worthy? Are we on the path of trying to achieve, to become worthy? And worthy of what? Worthy to become enlightened. Get it? I mean, worthy to become role model. Worthy to lead others. Worthy to carry or ferry others to the other shore. Right? That's what we mean by that. Okay? By peerage. Get it? Not, in ordinary contemporary language, we say status. It's some kind of status. But from the Tao, we say, it's considered worthy. Right? 前贤, right? So when we cut though, we say,
前贤.
各位前贤, right? All the worthies, 1 bar.
结果 means no result.
Yeah, 前贤 yeah, all the worthies.
岁数成人 ，OK， become a person. 好，师承遗也，you have to establish yourself. Okay.
Would qualify. Would qualify to become
don't start and
enlightened.
finish.
How do you qualify yourself?
From
Well, we have to manifest
can't
our
be
virtues.
start and
We have
finish.
to,
That's all
you
I
know,
said. Yeah.
avoid the
It doesn't really explain it.
intent, like the sun.
That's why, like I said,
Sanye,
the translation
right?
sometimes
Mind, body,
seems to deviate.
words, right? Sun, cold, eat, right? You know, mind, body.
Yeah.
All that. All
Okay,
that.
so yeah, so anyway, unfortunately, we only have time to finish just one aspect. But but this one's a long one. This one's a long one. Okay. The next one, just quickly. I know we're short on time. We're already whatever. But quickly, the second one just says 54. If one receives 10,000 but still has not rid of his or her sinful practices, how should we exhort that person? This is where I'm talking about the how. Yeah, how do we try to make someone change, or whatever. And that is where it does take a little bit of wisdom, because for the same situation, in the same situation, but for a different person, you will have different ways of doing it sometimes. And so it comes down to how you understand that person, okay? Because to try to change someone, you first have to understand that person, okay? Because you're trying to, you only through understanding that person can you realize, oh, okay, that person needs to change what, right? Okay, so you understand that person. Number two is that, by understanding the person, it will help you approach or perform, in a way that relates to that person, okay? And so therefore, this is where it's any method, it varies. Okay, it varies on situation. It's not one size fits all. Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a tendency for us to be lax, and we sometimes do one size try to fit all, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
See, but all that you have said, but the first, if you want to change that person, you have to be a good example first.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah, because after all, you yourself have to what? Manifest that virtue, or that thing that you're trying to change.
Like walk the talk. It's similar to walk the talk.
So because after all, the person can say, hey, you yourself do it. It's like saying a smoker trying to convince another smoker to quit.
Yeah, you're smoking yourself. So.
It's hard. It's hard. There's no way you can do it, right? Unless you're not a non-smoker.
You're
right?
alcoholic. You're trying to convince another alcoholic to become non-alcoholic. That doesn't work, right?
So you have to.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's why you have to, like Johnny said, that's the most important part actually, because you yourself must also have what changed. Also, okay. You could be like I said, two smokers. You could have been a smoker before. That's true. But the fact that you changed, quit, allows you to sort of like set a example for the other person. Okay. Yes.
This way, here in the temple or in the class, not going outside and try to set up ourselves as an example to change somebody else, some habits, as you mentioned before. But here among us, attending the classes, just here every Sunday, when you can, what do you see that you think it should change? Not about habits like smoking or drinking or something you think someone does but should not do because it's not good for them, for their health or anything else. As in Buddhism way or in the Tao way, what do you think should change in someone?
What do you think change in someone?
Yeah, something you see, you think like if they would change, they probably will understand it better, something like that, or I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what example would fit better in the way of life we are trying to live or we are living right now.
Okay, well.
Not on the habits we do outside there.
Okay, well, good example would be like, for instance, we talk about vegetarianism, okay? Because not everyone is a vegetarian, okay? Most people in the world is not vegetarian, right? Most people, okay? But suppose you're trying to change someone to be a vegetarian, okay? Because you yourself is a vegetarian, okay? So in that sense, it does make it very difficult to try to change someone, because if you just say, okay, I believe in not killing things or whatever, okay, well, that's only in the sense of killing things for consumption or use, okay? Because that's why in the U.S. when you talk to some people who are vegans, they say veganism is not a form of diet, but it's a lifestyle. They say, okay, I don't wear leather belt, I don't wear leather shoes, etc. Okay, so in that sense, they sort of like saying that, yeah, it's more than just consumption. Consumption is the most typically known. Diet is the most typical thing we talk about when we talk about vegetarianism. But here you're talking about a little bit more than that. Okay, but then of course, as I mentioned before, even though we say we are vegetarianism and we don't try to harm living things, okay, we do that only to a certain degree. The fact that we say, oh, I eat vegetables. Okay, well, where does your vegetable come from? A farmer. Okay, a farmer has to plant the vegetable, right? Well, how does he plant the vegetable? Well, he has to plow the field. Well, when he plows the field, does he harm any insects or earthworms or whatever that's in the soil? You bet, he does. So therefore, or if he sprays pesticides. Okay, but let's say we stay organic. Okay, let's just say we stay organic. Okay, so the point is that the fact that I have to consume that lettuce, and the farmer has to plant that lettuce, okay, then he is in a way you are indirectly still harming certain sentient beings. Because we call an insect could be a sentient being, right? But it's to the degree that's much less than to say, okay, you have to go slaughter a cow so that I can have its steak. I can have my steak. Okay, in that sense. Okay, because that is more direct. Okay, but we do have also certain indirect responsibility. So in that sense, we also have indirect or some karma associated with harming sentient beings. We do.
So it's like when you have a choice.
Right.
So
Yeah. So
you
right.
kill that insect or you
Right.
don't.
So you do
don't
do
take
it. Yeah. You
away.
do to a certain degree. Okay. Because for example, sometimes when we see an insect in the house, especially the ladies, sometimes when they go, eek, whoosh, swat. You see a spider, you get rid of it. But sometimes there are those people who say, oh, it's a spider. They catch it and they toss it outside. So, but it's a lot of trouble to do that. So, but the point is this: we do tend to do things that are not exactly 100% vegetarian. So we like to say we claim to be, we're on a higher ground. You are to a certain degree only, to a certain degree. Okay, not your absolute. You're not absolute, because if you are, then you'll be, Buddha. There's an old story. There's a story in Buddhism. It talks about a particular Buddha that when he walks on the ground, he doesn't walk on the ground. He floats on the ground. They say he floats on the ground. So his feet never touches the ground, they say. And the reason why they say because you do not step on any ants or whatever, insects or whatever. But then of course, when you think about it, you go, the people who practice Jainism, they wear masks.
Yeah.
Why do they wear masks? They say they don't want to breathe in any
Bacteria.
Again, of course, everything is to a certain degree. That is true. So that's why we say that even though we're influenced a lot by our karma, at the same time we're also creating karma. It's just the question of degree. Okay. So in terms of changing people, we can only say that nothing can be absolute. Nothing is absolute. But we can say, okay, at least like between two smokers, at least one can say, oh, I no longer smoke. So you can say, oh, here are the benefits. I don't pay for cigarettes anymore. My health is a little better, etc. Okay, but to answer your question directly, it is hard, especially when you meet someone who says, okay, if you're not absolute, then why should I listen to you? You're not God or whatever. Okay, but don't. So that's why the easiest way is really for us to establish ourselves. In other words, you set yourself only as an example. Whether other people will follow you or not, that's their decision. So we can hope that others will follow you, okay, because you manifest virtue, okay. But the reality is whether other people will follow you or not, it's not your decision. You can't expect them to, just because you're better, you can't expect them to also follow you, okay, or listen to you or whatever. It's still up to them. So we can only do what we can, which is just establish ourselves. That's pretty much it. I don't know if there's any examples, simple examples, but the point is here's a good one. Staff member, when doesn't matter whether we have Dharma class or not, Staff members sometimes we still talk among ourselves. Sometimes we talk about the sports event that happened, or we talk about the weather, or we talk about something gossip. Or in other words, it's gossip. So in general, we idle talk. I mean just normal talking. Okay, and it's very hard to get rid of because if you're in an environment where you're constantly communicating with other people, talking, gossiping, whatever, it is very difficult to get rid of. And in a temple, what do Buddhists even say? Say, hey, you should be solemn. You should not have idle chit chat, etc. Right? But we still do it. Okay. So for those who want to change others, there are some staff members who say, hey, we'll tell it, hey, don't do that. Start being very, very setting out commands. Say you should do this, whatever. Okay. And that's one way to do it. But some people will not accept that. Some people take it hard when they get a command from somebody else. Okay, so all we can do is really try to establish ourselves first, and hopefully others will follow, because you're setting yourself up as a good example. Okay. Yeah, I still don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it did.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. So I'm sorry that we've gone through and we spent overtime.
It's simple. We were on number 53. You talk about the nature, the Buddha nature. You mentioned someone's name as an example. He said lecturer Liu, and
Yes.
I never heard about him.
Okay.
I don't think.
Yeah,
Who is he?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Lecturer Liu is one of the he's one of the lecturers in Taiwan. He's in the Taipei area. He used to be a driver for our old predecessor. I think was it grand predecessor. Yeah, he used to be a driver for that. But he would attend a lot of his classes and all that stuff. And he himself put a lot of effort into studying the Tao after he received it. Okay, and because of that, he really gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And so that's why, especially about the Buddha nature.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, so that's why he gives these Buddha nature classes. Unfortunately, they're all in Chinese, and sometimes it's in Taiwanese, which I can't understand. But anyway, we haven't translated into English yet, and it's because it's very difficult. But we're trying to do that eventually. Hopefully, we'll have a translation. But for now, we don't have it.
Who's doing
we
it?
do?
I don't know.
Amy's been trying to do some of it. I know that Amy's doing a lot of it actually. But again, it takes a lot of review of the material and the English translation to really make sure it trying to express what the Chinese is trying to say.
Yeah, but to understand that, you have to have a good foundation in Tao. So it's not for beginners.
His good foundation because he was always with someone who had wisdom and he learned from them by driving them around.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
but
he
like.
was always where he was supposed to be.
Yeah, right. But Lecture Kai says, sometimes you need to have also a good foundation to listen to what he's talking about, because he talks about certain things that if you don't understand it, or have the foundation for it, you won't be able to understand it as well. Okay. But yeah, it is a good class. In fact, Holy Teacher tells us that we should be learning it, right? Well, or at least listen to it. Yeah. Okay. I think that's the second time. That's amazing. Okay, but anyway, so the point is that, unfortunately we don't have it completely in English.
No, I just want to know who he is.
Okay, that's who he is.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I also like to add on. He studied it 30 years himself.
Buddhism.
He was a Buddhist.
He was a Buddhist monk. He was a monk.
He used to be a monk.
Yeah, like a monk.
So he studied 30 years to figure out
To reach that level of understanding.
to understand that we need to do this letting go of
Yeah.
all the thoughts,
Attachment.
And
not
and
have any single thought
not go of
arise.
attachments. Yeah.
Just this one line.
Very basic.
It took him
Yeah.
30 years to figure that out.
Yeah, 30 years.
Well, that's the essence of Buddha's teaching, actually.
Yeah.
There's a way of looking at
Time.
it.
Yeah.
See, so it took him 30 years. Now, he's hoping that most of us will not do that, but I doubt it. I think most of us will take at least 30 years. And he practiced, full time. most of us
Yeah, yeah,
practice
he-
maybe
no,
one day a week.
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah, yeah.
whatever.
I don't know
So, you
during the
that-
time when he was a monk whether he was still working.
Well,
but maybe
yeah.
not.
No,
And
later.
maybe, later he worked.
He left. Didn't he leave?
Yeah, right.
He,
Okay.
he returned to heaven.
Yeah, right.
No, I know. No, I don't mean that. I meant, he's like what?
He started at the-
60多岁
Right.
Well, he said he used 30 years to figure out this thing we can do, not have a single thought arise, to let go of the thoughts and just sit still, kind of getting to know our true nature. So he said if we study 2 hours a day, we can get that effect. We don't have to spend 30 years. He's giving it to us already.
So it's like something he chose. He said he was.
Oh, he was very interested. Yeah, because supposedly when a very young age, he was like a G-tone or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Median.
A medium.
Yeah, I mean,
Channel.
yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry that I took too long, and we're now already in the second stage. But I'd like to thank the grace of heaven and the virtue of the predecessors and our transmitters that I had this opportunity to present this class. And if I said anything wrong or incorrectly, may heaven forgive me. Thank you.